Hey, welcome back to another HVAC Success Secrets Revealed with Thaddeus and Evan, a show where we have good conversations with good people, and any good conversation worth having is drunk. Cheers, my friends. I know you're trying to get healthy right now, so you're sipping on a tea.
Yeah, if my voice cuts out in the middle of the show, I'm sorry. I'm just going through puberty all over again.
It's that middle-aged puberty. Comes back to bite you in the ass.
It's called AHR Expo and way too many beers at the HVAC Tactical Awards.
There was only a couple being had there.
Yeah, and a bunch of whiskeys. But either way, let's get going.
It was a good time. Awesome. Well, today we've got on Aaron Bramwell. He is with Click. Where was it?
Click to Buy Services.
Click to Buy Services. There we go. All about online purchasing. And I know it's been a big thing that's been coming to the home services space, something that's been talked about a lot. Should I put pricing online? Should I not put pricing online? Well, Aaron and his team, I mean, they've been in the online space for a number of years now. They've got a tremendous amount of knowledge. And one of the most relevant pieces to this conversation has to be around online pricing. And after spending a decade of working together, Aaron and his team helped ABC Services, right? That's what it was.
ABC Home Services.
ABC Home Services. That was the one. Grow to 11 different service lines, including HVAC, appliance repair, plumbing, electrical. And through this relationship and Aaron's experiences, he created Click to Buy Services. And I'm super excited to dive into this conversation today around online pricing and making it easy for consumers to make a purchase through your website, and what kind of a transition that it takes for a home service business to jump into that. So I'm excited for this conversation today.
Yeah, me too. I know when him and I had an original conversation of coming on the show, talking about Click to Buy and just this whole concept of e-commerce in the trades, and how does it work? How can you do it? How can you do it effectively, but also still maintain integrity throughout the entire process? And it's not just a race to the bottom for the lowest price, but also to be able to build value. So exciting things to be able to get into today. I'm excited for it. And of course, it wouldn't be possible without our sponsors, Chiirp, Profit Rocket, and Sera. And in no particular order, we'll go with Chiirp first. Chiirp is actually one of the ultimate automation toolbox for home service pros. Helps you capture more leads, connect faster, and close more deals. Some of the things I love about Chiirp, by the way, direct integrations, aka drop-down menus with some of the biggest names out there: Service Titan, Housecall Pro, Sera, Jobber. Automated text messages, rehash programs, getting more reviews, on and on and on and on. Of course, you can get a 25% off your first 3 months by clicking that link right there. It is in our show notes. Do not worry about having to write that down because it's a confusing one, but 25% off your first 3 months. It also goes hand in hand with our other sponsor, Sera Systems. And Sera Systems is a field management software that ensures essentially profitability, right? One of the things that I love is real-time job efficiency and dynamic dispatching. So it's actually using AI to dispatch appropriately and accordingly and making it super smart. I think I love about, and a whole bunch of other things that go involved with it too, don't get me wrong. Users of Sera, they have an average increase in revenue of 52% within the first 6 months while doubling their profits. To get a demo with them, head on over to sales.sera.tech/HVAC-revealed.
Amazing. And our last, but certainly not least sponsor, Profit Rocket and the Profit Rocket Blueprint. Look, if you're an HVAC business owner and you're looking to grow and start your company, and any home service business owner, you need to go check out Profit Rocket Blueprint, number one. And number two, they've got an incredible opportunity for you to attend coming up this March 3rd. They'll have guest speakers, an open bar, cigar rollers, live entertainment, and of course the summer strategy session happening in California at Victor's location at Absolute Airflow. It's the whiteboard party. It is on March 3rd. You can grab all the details at callprofitrocket.com. Best part is the event is completely free. You got to go check it out. It's going to be a great time. You know that if Victor's running an event, it's always going to be a great time. There's always going to be a tremendous amount of knowledge and value that he's going to be bringing there. So go check it out, callprofitrocket.com.
Let's go.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to HVAC Success Secrets Revealed, a show where we interview industry leaders and disruptors, revealing the success secrets to create and unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Now your hosts, Thaddeus and Evan.
Aaron, welcome to the show, my friend.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm nervous. I'm nervous. You guys are, famous.
Well, I mean, don't be nervous. I'm sure the nerves will go away. But actually, still to this day, I've done a lot of public speaking, and still before every time, I mean, not necessarily the podcast, but like public speaking itself, I still get butterflies and nerves in the stomach. But as soon as you get in there and start going, it becomes a lot better. The other part is, I mean, we've been doing this for the better part of 2.5 years, the podcast. So our first content, if you're to look back and find that in the mystery vault, that will remain locked forever and ever and ever. No, I'm kidding. It'll probably come out and see the light. It'll see the light of day at some point. Yeah. It was bad. It was rough. It was shitty. But you know what? Here we are today. Fail forward is one mechanism that I like to use.
Absolutely. 100%. I appreciate you guys inviting me on. It's I'm looking forward to the conversation and just seeing where this goes.
Absolutely. Well, and you had an interesting path in working with the trades, because you came from the marketing side, the digital side, and the web development side, and happened to work with one of the largest companies in North America in ABC, and then helping them grow into so many different service lines and expand. But why don't you tell your story, why you got involved into the trades in general as a marketing provider, and how you came to Click to Buy?
Yeah, sure. So I guess by accident is the answer. I'm probably on the older side of some of the digital natives that are out there. So I've been going on my 25th year here, working in web and digital, product design, that kind of stuff. And ultimately, we've got Click to Buy services. We also have a digital agency, and we were introduced to ABC Home Commercial Services through a friend. And you would think at the time they were kind of just a pest control and lawn care service company. They kind of started with pest, added on lawn. And it's an interesting company because it's a family-owned company, family-run company. It's 3 different brothers, all own different branches of the ABC organization, and they're all under one hood of one domain, basically. So you've got 3 brothers running all different kinds of services in 11 different locations in 3 different states. Each different location has, again, different services, different pricing, different operations. And so as a digital agency, it makes our job pretty interesting, trying to make sure that, number one, nobody makes any changes that interrupts the other brothers, digital ecosystem. And number 2, playing, a little bit of the tiebreaker, making sure things are fair, and helping make sure that the knowledge is transferred amongst all 3 of them as well. So when we started, it was really just, they all had different domains, and ABC, I'm in Austin, Texas. They're mostly Texas based. They were, again, just kind of a pest and lawn company. And so we were brought in to help start to both the different brothers companies together, and then also start to launch other services. So after pest and lawn, they launched handyman, and then they moved into pool, and now they've moved into, it varies by location, but they're covering pretty much everything: electrical, HVAC, water, plumbing, exterior cleaning, and the traditional kind of pest and lawn. And they're always still kind of looking for what's the next thing that they need to add on to their overall, service catalog. So it's, as a digital agency, growing with them from a 2-service single company to, they're selling 36 different services, I think, online at this point, across, again, all different kinds of locations. And the variety of what's sold to who and when is pretty epic. It keeps us pretty sharp, but it's also, as a creative by nature, we always love these problems to try to figure out how to solve them. So where Click to Buy was kind of born was 2015. We started talking with the brothers about a redesign. So we'd already done a couple sites. We've been with them for about 15, 16 years at this point. And so they decided, okay, we should be able to calculate how to sell pest and lawn. And we figured out how to do it, figured out the pricing engines, figured out the mechanism, and, kind of launched what, as far as we could tell, one of the first, true e-commerce stores for services, for pest and lawn services. And that site kind of just, lived for 4 or 5 years. But as soon as we launched it, we're like, there's got to be a better way. There's ways to sell all these other services too. Like, it's not that hard. How can we crack this nut? And so between the time that site launched and, we're learning lessons every step of the way on, how to make changes and what things aren't going to resonate and what are, and how to position things, what helps build confidence through the whole, kind of buying process. We started to think through all the mechanics of all these other services and really boiled it down to, the different types of services that people buy. They're going to be one-time diagnostics, one-time fixed rate or fixed cost services, recurring services. But similarly, there's still those services where you might need some kind of, person to come out, need a free estimate, need to request more information. And so over the course of that 4 or 5 years, we kind of figured out all those missing pieces to put together one system that could manage, the way to add one-time services, fixed rate or diagnostic, recurring, and requests for more information or free estimates into one basically shopping cart to allow the person to check out and, and pay some dollars. And so that's kind of the long story short story long, is we had all that kind of figured out. When the next redesign came up, we built it with them, and then kind of just continued to learn for another couple of years. And now we've productized the whole thing and are trying to bring it to, the rest of the planet, to help really just, again, evolve the way that home services are bought and sold the world over, and helping bridge that gap between homeowners and home service companies and trade companies, because this e-commerce should be here for all these different organizations. Like, it's been around for 20 years. Why not the trades? And so while there is a slow adoption, I guess, I'm really loving the conversations we're having, to be able to understand where those blockers are, where those barriers are, and, just what's in everybody's head, because everybody has kind of different things going through their minds. And some people get it and they're like, cool, now that it's here, I was waiting for the technology, it's here, let's roll. Other people are a little bit slow to move and are looking to, be a little bit later on the adoption cycle. So
makes sense. One actually thing in terms of the adopting e-commerce, and we've chatted about this before with a myriad of different other guests. Why do you think that the home services, and even HVAC specifically, but why do you think that there's a slow adoption to be able to bring in these e-commerce based strategies?
That's a great question. I would say the quickest answer is change is hard, right? I think that we in the digital space are accustomed to the pace at which digital moves and evolves. And that's the reason people hire us collectively, is because we're keeping our pulse on that, and they've got a business to run. And a lot of them are still trying to figure out CRM tools, and still trying to figure out, how to manage, their digital marketing. And so adding one more piece into that is hard for them, some of them, to compute. And so that falls into the general change is hard category. There's other change is hard, legs to that stool, which is, what's the impact within the business? If we were to start to sell stuff and somebody does give me money online, do we even know what to do with it? Like, that's another piece of the puzzle that is part of this transition, right? You've got to slowly but surely adjust the way that you think and the way that you operate, to allow for this e-commerce, and this pay online model to take off. So I would say change is hard is a big one. I would also say, and again, there's, in our minds, we really are focused on services. So the challenge of selling services versus selling products, the selling of products has been online for a long time, whether it's Shopify, WooCommerce, other options are out there. It's not an unknown entity on how to be able to sell a product. Services are a little bit harder to calculate. The variety that we've seen between even similar companies in the same trade are very different, how they want to package things, how they want to sell things. And so selling services requires a little bit of different thinking. In some cases, not so much. If it's a one-time diagnostic, what the cost is, cool, put it online, let somebody pay for it. In other cases, and where we really, I think, have a lot of fun and really are trying to help educate, is the value of options. And so, okay, how can I deconstruct really large services to let somebody give me a little bit of money to start that kind of engagement in that relationship, to build trust along the way. And so how do they potentially have to deconstruct larger services into more purchasable offerings, is one that takes a little bit of creative thinking. But the other piece that I think is important to the whole e-commerce thought process is that we've got to put ourselves in the mind of the homeowners that are buying these services. And legacy models, the way historically services have been packaged and sold, that may not be the way that homeowners really need and want to buy. And so deconstructing those to provide different types of financing options, different types of purchasing options. Maybe it is a more recurring service, but you still want to offer a one-time, option. Great. Let's explore that. Let's test it. Let's see what works. And so that creative thinking about, change is a part of it. And some of them just need a little help. The last piece I would just say to add into why it's been a little bit of a challenge is just the lack of technology. To get something like this up and running, whether it's click to buy or other solutions out there, you would have to build something custom, which is what ABC had to do, 7-8 years ago, to get it online and be able to start to learn. And now that technical barrier has dropped quite a bit, we're starting to see solutions like ourselves come into the market, which we love. We don't really consider, it's like we as an agency and as a software company, we really believe in there's plenty of work for everybody. Like, nobody should be freaked out about, the competition. We're all in this together to help move the conversation. But the technology barrier has been pretty significant when it's really hard for some of these contractors to even get their website up and running. So, everybody's kind of in different spaces in terms of where they're starting their journey, not only with digital, but also with e-commerce. And, what we really try to do is help them take that first step, make it super simple, gently evolve even just their request a quote form or request an estimate form to allow to slowly start to sell purchasable services so they can get their feet wet. And, the other piece that I'll kind of close that out with is, it is a process, right? It's a journey. It's not a destination. And the faster you can kind of dip your toe into the waters and start to learn and iterate, the faster you're going to be ahead of the market at large in your competition. So that's really where, ABC, as a whole, we've seen a ton of success with them. They've been in the market for 6-7 years selling these services, learning. A lot of those lessons have been rolled into, our thought leadership and the product that Click to Buy provides. But there's still internal lessons just need that, again, operation-wise, payment-wise, how you start to build those calluses of your business. The sooner you can get those under your, get those moving, the faster you can move, and the person that learns the fastest is going to be the winner. So,
well, one of the things that's pretty unique about what it is that, like, where you come from in this is that you're the marketer provider and you're providing this e-commerce solution. So I'm curious, as you started to implement this e-commerce solution for ABC, what did you notice in terms of metrics, conversion rates, et cetera, as to why it made sense to roll this out across the entire company and all the 11 services and be able to implement a model that made sense for online transactions?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easy answer is just the little successes, right? And so, like, one of the things that I jokingly say we giggle about it like little schoolgirls is when somebody buys something at 2 a.m. in the morning,
right?
It's like when your doors are closed and you're not, on the weekends or whatever, and no one's manning the phones, you're going to lose sales, especially if there's, I know emergency services have different types of phone numbers and stuff, but the way that homeowners think about a certain service, if their, HVAC goes out in the middle of the night, they don't want to just submit a bunch of quotes or request a quotes and wait and wonder. They want to know somebody's going to come out. They want to know that, if they've provided money for that diagnostic, someone's going to show up, someone's going to call them back, and there's a little bit more reassurance that they're going to get the service that they need in a timely fashion. But yeah, that has probably been one of the most interesting things that we've seen is that, you forget that just like a website, people can read your content, interact with your brand 24/7, 365. People can also buy your products when they need it. They don't want to have to wait until the morning when you get back online. And especially as the demographics of homeowners change and trend more young and away from, the older demographics that would maybe prefer a phone call, they want to buy right now. They don't want to talk to anybody. They just want to get it done right now. And so I'll get up in the morning and, see kind of a dashboard of all the different sales that have come in, and it's all different kinds of services at every hour of the day. And so the takeaway there is, you need to be able to take money and from anybody at any time, right? It's like there's the trend of websites and digital has been cool. You need a website, great, check. Okay, great. You need to have a phone number on there people can call you, check. You need a chat, okay, check. Those are only work well if your website's up, people are manning the phones, and someone's manning your chat. The difference, though, is that you can still engage with them whenever they want, in the fashion that they want, and take it a step further and get paid before you leave the parking lot to go out there and do the work for them.
Correct.
One thing that comes to mind for me in terms of this, and you mentioned it and alluded to it at the very beginning,
Yeah.
And some of the pushback from the quote unquote sales guys or the sales gurus or whoever would be that, well, I no longer have the ability to build value in my pricing, right? And you mentioned that, what builds confidence while showing, prices online, how can one take this and like obviously meeting customers where they're at, right? Not everybody's going to want to find the pricing online, but how do you continue to build that value to maintain the confidence in the pricing, should especially your pricing be higher than somebody else in the marketplace?
Yeah, I mean, some of that I would say is, through the experience, right? I mean, if the shopping experience is craptastic, you're not going to have a whole lot of confidence that your credit card's not going to get stolen, right? So that's part of it. But I think a lot of this, some of it's on the checkout process. The other part, though, is going to be the blocking and tackling of your standard digital. I mean, if like we've had some clients that really want to use us and they don't have a website, and it's like, I can build this, but they won't necessarily come. You need to still have traffic coming to your website. You still need to be doing all of the, the standard best practice marketing to build trust, build brand awareness, help educate every step of the way. And like ABC, they are not the cheapest by far. They're probably one of the most expensive here in Texas, and they're slaying it. And it's because they really do put in the time and energy to build that education, build that awareness, build even just community relationships, so that people have that trust and they will be willing to pay more. So I think it's kind of a lot of different things. Trust is probably the biggest word in all of this. And there's a lot of social cues, that can add into that. But if they trust that it's properly calculated, that's one thing. And so some of the things we do for some of the other trades is we can calculate stuff based on square footage of the house or square footage of the yard. And so if we show them what their square footage is when they're checking out, okay, they know exactly that we got the number right. And so that price should be accurate as well. We show Google Maps to show them exactly where their house is. So we know that, okay, they're looking at my house, not my neighbor's house. Another social, just like visual cue that the pricing is going to be accurate. The other thing too, though, is, and this is where I get a little nerded out, is just the pricing psychology around a lot of just how things are sold. And if you're showing prices that have some weird, like, $236.59, it makes you really kind of wonder, okay, what is going into this versus showing something that is a little bit more of a cleaner number. And so you can remove a lot of the mental, the whole don't make me think approach to digital, the mental, triggers that force people to think, why, is this, are they rolling in the cost of the equipment? And like, why would it be 59 cents? That's something that just can force them to can be a blocker in friction in the overall checkout process. So there's a lot of things that we just then help people say, let's round this up to just the even dollar. And people are going to much rather look at that number than something with a bunch of extra cents at the end.
Although to the FBI, the hostage negotiator, what was his name? You know the book I'm talking about, right?
I haven't read it, but I know what you're talking about.
I'm just drawing a blank on his name for whatever reason. But one of the things is actually, and he says in the negotiations, is come up with a number.
Never split the difference, Chris.
There you go.
There you
Never
go.
split the difference, Chris Voss. And so what he thinks, one of the things he says in negotiating is come up with a number that doesn't make it sound like you just, randomly pulled a number anywhere. They actually put some thought into the actual number. And maybe it's a little bit different when you're looking at online pricing and the psychology behind that. So
Sure.
in pushing back on that, do you think that there might be an actual benefit to having something similar to that, or are you just eliminating the cents and rounding up to whatever or down to whatever that nearest whole dollar is?
I mean, I think it's going to depend, right? I mean, it depends on the service that's getting sold. It depends on if you're showing a lot of different options. So as an example, like one of the things that we still just find fascinating is, one of our most complex sale that we've ever had was for window washing. And it was like, you can go out there and say, here's how many windows I have. Here's how many blinds that I have. Do I want inside and outside? And it'll automatically add and subtract numbers to give you options of here's what it costs to just do the outside and here's what it costs to do the inside and outside. If you're showing multiple options, you want to easily allow the person to compare the numbers quickly, right? So that might be a good approach to keeping the numbers simple. If they did just want to do outside window washing, the calculation would probably be a little bit more messy because we're calculating super granular type things and not necessarily rounding up. So, a lot of times what we see is on the, trades in general is on some of the more complex sales. That's really probably where there'd be a little bit more of an odd looking number. But a lot of the fixed cost stuff, the on-demand stuff, and the recurring stuff, especially where there's options shown more on the recurring side than on the one-time or the on-demand side, keep the numbers as simple as you can. Or use, like pricing anchors, like you really do want to sell, monthly versus annually. Okay, you're going to make one be a little bit more expensive. We've seen that in some cases where, they want to still offer a one-time service for something, and also show that with a recurring service, and the one-time service will be a lot higher because it's going to take a lot more for that first visit than potentially the ongoing visits. So it sends them a cue of, I'll rather just sign up for a recurring because in the long run, it's going to be cheaper than this one time. And that's true across all products that you see, and services online. So it's kind of like, how do you apply those same buying techniques and pricing psychology that we've seen across, for decades as people have moved into e-commerce? How do you start to apply that to the services that you sell? And that's where some of that change comes in. Okay, let's modify this just a little bit. And what we've kind of seen is where we make those recommendations, they're like, oh yeah, I mean, if I'm selling this online, I'm saving a shit ton of sales commissions. So I'm going to just pick a better number and then I'll save that 10, 20%, whatever the case may be, because no one's going to be involved in the transaction. And they can then either give that discount to their client to bring the cost down, or they can, use it to make a little bit more cheddar at the end of the day. Good question.
Makes sense. The thing that I find I love about this idea is more often than not, the owner is the number one salesperson in an organization.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're able to put them at the face of the company, have them be in video, in text, pictures, etc., as you're going through the buying process and they're explaining what it is that people are deciding on, it makes a ton of sense. And you're able to leverage that knowledge. You're able to leverage that reputation, right?
Yeah.
That you talked about here. And I mean, when you look at ABC's Google reviews, there's over 3,000 Google reviews, right? So that alone is going to help them stand out in the marketplace. Testament to your question there, Thad, around how much does the reputation really impact that buying experience? But being able to leverage the owner in the buying opportunities and the buying experience, I think, is massive. And that's what e-commerce really provides a company.
Yeah, it's credibility, it's integrity. And, even at their company where, again, 36 plus odd services across, the Austin owner, Bobby, he runs, I think, 6 or 7 different locations. He is still the face of the company. He's the one that's out in the community, building goodwill, promoting the organization. He's got a great team, but they're doing a ton of business, and that is his full-time job,
right.
is selling the brand and the trust. And, that, I think, again, it's an intangible. It's a lot of work to start to do those things, but it shows in the amount of traffic that they get and the amount of, leads and purchases they're getting online. Even just in I ran some numbers before this, the last 6 or 7 days, they've had over 50 purchases ranging from $60 to $600. and a wide variety of services, and even people purchasing services from different types of industries. So a toilet repair with an electrical appointment, ceiling fan installation with a garbage disposal repair.
Right.
So as I know y'all primarily focus on HVAC, but as long as businesses start to grow and they may be considering other service lines to grow into, maybe even to help with some of the seasonality of businesses, Click to Buy can help grow with you, and also you start to see how people come to the site for one thing and they start to build trust. It's like, oh, they do that too, let me add that to my cart as well.
Right.
So it's not just, that was one thing we didn't know, honestly, when we first launched the new version, is will they add more than one service to their cart when they check out? Because they usually we only had a couple services, and so we didn't really know. And it is shocking how many different types of services they'll add at the same time.
I'm curious, did you monitor, like, as you added services, did you monitor the bounce rate out of the cart too?
I'm sure we did. I don't have those numbers on me.
So the one thing I'm curious on, and where the question kind of comes from, is a confused mind says no. Right. Mm-hmm. And so and this is a testament to your product, by the way, in that if you can't convey the message in a simple and easy to understand, an easily digestible way,
right,
they're going to bounce and they're going to leave. Right. So you have to be able to present, here's the option that you came for. And by the way, we also offer these services as well in a simple and easy to understand way.
Yeah, I think it maybe even goes beyond that too, Evan, because it's like, one of the I would say the differentiators of Click to Buy from some of the other solutions out there is it is truly an evolution of the request for information form.
Right.
Every trade out there has that form, right?
Correct.
So how do you have that form? And then also, when you can sell a service, you add that button, do you want an estimate or do you want to buy it now? And then if somebody's not comfortable buying, they can always still request that estimate and you still get that lead. And that could be, again, why they wouldn't hit that button. It could be a lot of different reasons.
Correct.
But as soon as you open that door and put that, buy and schedule now button there, then they can start to explore the price. They get more information. If you give them more options, they don't that's the value of options, is they don't compare it. They're not going to go out and compare it to potentially other competitors because they're making that decision between one or many options. If you just show them one price, they don't have anything to compare it to. And
Correct.
So the chances of them actually going out and looking around to see if it is a good value or not might be higher. So we believe in options. We also believe in just flexibility. And one of those options is, do you want to request more information or do you want to buy now? And that's kind of one of the first things that they'll have to decide on. And so I would say there's less bounce rate than somebody just plugging in a true e-commerce, traditional shopping cart, because it is that gentle onboarding and shallow end into the purchasing of services, paradigm, which is we all know is coming. It's just a matter of, who's going to be the maverick that does it first and pushes it and learns the fastest. So I don't know. It's been a cool ride. Very fun.
Yeah. If you guys, one thing when you're talking about adding services to multiple services to an order form, order bumps, right? We hear about that all the time in terms of adding things in. Is there something that you found in that part of the process, whether using an order bump or not? And if you are, is there something that you find is working quite well?
Yeah,
and just for reference, if anybody's listening to know what the fuck's an order bump, is when you're checking out and you have it and you're on the very bottom thing and it says pay now, but then there's like a big box with like flashing, blinking lights saying, but wait, this one last thing.
But wait, there's more.
Right? Yeah. But wait, there's more.
Get this $129 offer for only $29 today.
Right?
7 minutes only.
So, there's a couple, we've played with a couple different things. We call them add-on services. It's pretty much the same thing. And so there's a couple different ways you can handle it, right? So one is if there is an additional bump specific to that service, like, hey, we're going to come out and do this. Do you want something that's directly related to it? That's one option. And that's one of the way and the second option is that's where you promote the uncorrelated services, right? So for example, you came out here, you want to buy pest control. Do you want us to do your lawn too? Do you want to buy an annual HVAC maintenance plan? It's like you can cross-sell different services across different categories. And that's where we've was kind of an unknown when we launched it to see, okay, how many people may come for one thing and buy a totally uncorrelated service. So one option is to get them within the buying process, right? So you came, you wanted this, here's some additional bumps or add-ons. The other option is just continually reinforce that. So once they do check out, we have something that says, oh, by the way, did you know we also offer these other services? And, this may not be a truly applicable, like feature for all different types of trades, especially if you are kind of limited to kind of one specific service. But the more you can just reinforce, oh, we also do this, here's something else that might be of interest, that's adding value every step of the way. So, those are kind of some of the lessons we've learned. And that's where a lot of the creativity can come in, right? So if you are doing something and you want to add a guarantee or a warranty to it, it's like that could be an easy addition to the shopping cart that then gives more trust, a little bit of a price increase, sales increase. So yeah, lots of little things like that. Just again, mechanics of traditional e-commerce applied to services. That's where it gets really interesting. And I think that's where it just increases sales overall, because you don't really have that option with just your standard request and estimate form. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of sex appeal, not a lot of information or education along the way. And now you finally, with click to buy services, you've got the ability to play with a lot of these things and figure out what works for your business, and and just kind of iterate. So, that I would say, going back to one of the initial questions, there's got to be a desire to win for some of these owners to dig in, and start to take the first step and start to learn and start to iterate. Doesn't mean it's going to be a full-time job, but e-commerce and thinking about every service that you have, how could we sell this? It needs to be a consistent conversation within the organization. And we kind of call it a transition champion. Like who's gonna be the person? It doesn't have to be like a director of e-commerce, but who's going to get tagged with the job of, okay, you need to put on one lens, and anything we talk about, think about how we could sell that service. How could we maybe deconstruct it? How could we turn that into a one-time diagnostic that's paid instead of a free estimate? Let's add some more value to this and charge for it. And that way you're not sending people out wasting valuable, tech times, service technician times, even, especially when staffing might be challenging for some. How can you make sure you're getting paid for that time? Sometimes it means you do need to change, the value add that you're bringing to that conversation versus just showing up and, looking under the hood for a couple minutes and giving them a, potentially a giant number. And there's ways to, reduce the risk and the fear on the client side too. If it is a, $100 diagnostic, and anything that if they do move forward, that's going to get paid forward to the overall charge of the service. Great. And you can put any fine print you need in there that says, to protect the organization, this is what it covers. If there's additional parts and labor, we're going to let you know. We'll be really clear about that. And this is exactly what you're getting for this money. But so there's kind of like this push and pull on the e-commerce side, where we've got to keep a deep empathy for the homeowner. How do they want to buy? What would be of interest? What's, what cadence might they want? Some kind of financing plan based on their budget or finances. What kind of services might they really just need? I just needed somebody to fix my toilet. Okay, great. Don't make me send a request for quote for that. Like, just let me pay you $150 to come out and fix it.
Yep.
So it's thinking empathy for the homeowner, but it's also then in the business owner's mind. How can we deliberately, not blow up the machine, but make those tiny little steps to start to build a bridge to e-commerce overall.
Right. Well, and you're going to get that retention rate in your run rates, right? When you're running calls, if someone's already paid the $50 diagnostic or $100 diagnostic or whatever it is that you're charging, they're not canceling that appointment.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're not looking for anyone else. Their credit card has been charged.
Yeah, I mean, but the other thing that I'll add here is just like everyone's been spit shining their customer experience in the traditional world, there's still a new customer experience in the e-commerce world that has to be, deliberately looked at and delivered, right? So if you do take somebody's credit card and nobody shows up, okay, now you got to give a refund, and that's a whole other side of the equation. So, a lot of the time, a lot of the ways we look at it with businesses is, you're still going to be able to take these, requests for estimate, free estimate leads, and there's usually a system to handle that. If you've got one or many, and you can separate it by emails, so one or many emails for requests and estimates, one or many emails for purchases, they can go to the same people or totally different people. But that allows you to say any lead that is a purchase where money is involved and we've already collected it. What happens once it hits our bank account? What does that experience look like? How do we build that? How do we make sure it mirrors the great experience we've built on the request and estimate side, or is it different because we've already got their money, and so now we just need to roll them in, and, to send them text messages and when they're going to be serviced, or call them back to just reaffirm that, like we normally would, that everything's taken care of and we're going to be there on this date and this time. So it's, those are things that are part of this process. I mean, and I really want to be honest about that. Like, it's a change. This is a paradigm shift, and the faster you can start to think through these things, like it's coming, right? Whether you guys want it or not, the faster you can think through how it impacts your business, and you get those like subtle changes in operations, the faster that's in place, the more you can throw stones at it, see what's broken. As things start to scale, you add on new lines of purchasable services. You then are evolving that process versus starting from ground zero with a blank slate.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the other, like, there's so many ways that I want to go from this. I mean, obviously, I think random questions going to come up next, but the thing about buying and then reaffirming their service, right? I think that's a critical thing. And so somebody is at 3 a.m. and they utilize your service. Well, you should have some automation set up that automatically kicks off to reaffirm what their services are. It's funny, we mentioned two of our sponsors that I think would probably be great fits here. Sera, you can book them directly. They can book themselves directly online with something like Sera. So now they've bought, and now you get to transition them, say, okay, well, how can you further automate this process? And maybe you have some of these parameters in click to buy, but if you don't, now somebody buys, boom, they get redirected to the Sera booking page embedded on a website, right? Now they can book their service online because they've already bought, right? Now that they've booked their service, now you kick it off into Chiirp. Chiirp then has the automation sequence that's built out, all about their tech that is coming out. Now all your tech has to do is just show up at the door, right? And maybe potentially add any other upsells that might happen as a result of the service call, right? And so there's these steps that you can automate these things that goes that extra bit further for the customer journey. Because like I think of myself as like I'm the ideal customer avatar at this moment in time given my age, right? But think about it, right? Like I'm 37 years old. I own 2 homes, and so I am the ideal customer avatar for a lot of the people, even people that are younger than me. Are owning homes, and they're the ones that are wanting this technology. So if I'm able to do this, and this is why I'm taking a pause to mention this, because again, I am an ICA for a lot of companies, is that if I were to be able to do that and that whole sequence got kicked off and the guy just shows up at my door, fuck me, that's a great company.
Yeah.
Right.
And
like
100%. Yeah. And so one of those pieces that can help that, and I love the sponsor plug, is Click to Buy is connected with Zapier. So, I mean, you can do a shit ton with Zapier, and, kind of the sky's the limit. So where Click to Buy, really that purchase or that request and estimate is that first trigger to start all this fun, you dream it, you can build it type of automation for businesses, which is really just kind of awesome. So,
cool. Random question generator coming up next. Shameless plug our 4th sponsor, onpurposemedia.ca, which is us. We are the HVAC marketing experts. If you're an HVAC business or home service business and you're struggling with your marketing, well, hit us up, onpurposemedia.ca. There's a bunch of different prompts. Call us, text us, carrier pigeon, etc.
I hear those guys are great.
Smoke signals.
Smoke signals, yeah. Those don't quite make it all the way up to Canada, though. The wind distorts it in the winter. It's we'll send our dog sled out. All right, random question. You get to choose what's behind door number 1, 2, or 3. Of course, you don't actually get to know what the question is until you get to choose what number you want.
Let's do 2.
2. What sport would be the funniest to add a mandatory amount of alcohol to?
Oh God. The first thing that probably gymnastics, I think. I think that would be
Dangerous.
epic.
That would be hilarious. Imagine somebody on the balance beam trying to do their things when they're fucking torqued.
Yeah, that or like karate, just like drunk kung fu.
No, those are both good answers. Those are both good answers.
My first thought was water polo, and I'm like, nah, that would probably end badly. So
Yeah.
I'll take those two.
That was a good question. I like that one. I mean, that was fun.
I think I would still go golf. I feel like to hear those players chirping on the course, like to have them all mic'd up and all just a little sloshed, I think it'd be a great time.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
I mean,
Especially
most
when
golf drunk anyways, so.
Right. Especially the pros, I bet you they would probably still be able to stick things within 5 feet and chirp each other.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
They're probably drunk anyways. So.
I wanted to do the high pitch. Somebody's closer, but my throat is so sore that I can't hit those high notes right now.
A little tappy tap.
Tap it in. Happy Gilmore references, anybody?
Yes.
Yes.
True culture.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know, Thad, you said you had a lot of different directions that you wanted to go in. I'm more or less curious what your thoughts are in the big tech world. The Googles, the Amazons, what their presence is going to look like when it comes to the home service space. They've continued to try and dabble into it a little bit. Amazon tried their home services thing where they were selling services, and then it just kind of flopped. It didn't really take off as big as it probably could have. And I think it was just a little early. But when you look at Google, I mean, it's already the number one provider in terms of information and sources for call volume for a lot of companies. So, where do you think that they're going to play within this e-commerce space within the home services, and how can companies continue to get in front of that?
Oh, that's a great question. Short answer, I don't have any idea. I mean, really, I don't. I mean, just honestly, these companies are crazy. I mean, to your point on Amazon, I mean, if memory serves, where they really tried to dabble in was stuff that they could kind of and I don't know if they got into more like leads. Like there's a lot of services out there. I don't know if necessarily in HVAC, but other trades that are really more lead capture, lead resales, and there's not really even a service arm to the company. They're just a marketing company that's generating and selling leads.
Right.
Amazon, I don't know. I kind of feel like they did dabble in it. I mean, one thing I do like about Amazon that mirrors a lot of this is they are moving into like financing, providing options. They understand that that's, again, how homeowners are buying. And that's mirrored a lot in kind of the stuff the thinking that we try to put into our product. So Amazon, no idea, truthfully, no idea. I kind of feel like they went there, it didn't work, and they're making so much freaking money that I don't know if they'll get there. Or the other option is that the whole industry has to kind of evolve enough. Like it's still, again, so new. I don't know if they really understand how it would work.
Right.
And so, there may need to be really just a winner in the provider of home service e-commerce. It'll probably be us. I'm just kidding. Where they can then learn those lessons and figure out how to roll it into their systems. I mean, that's how these guys work.
Yep.
In terms of Google, that one's also tricky. I mean, I think one thing that might be kind of a correlated experience is during the pandemic, you saw how they took over the online, like restaurant menu ordering market. Like there was this catalyst in the world that forced them to, I believe I know, like they got some separate products, but they're also rolling a lot of that stuff in just, kind of the local search results. They changed the entire landscape of that business, where websites for those restaurants weren't even necessary in some regard. So, I don't think, the tricky part about Google is they could launch something like this overnight and it changes an entire industry. And I think I don't know, man, that's a really tough question. It really is. I still feel like there's enough nuance and complexity in selling services that would be a pretty big blocker for them to be able to just roll something out. I mean, Think about how long it's taken to get to this point after e-commerce has been around for 25 plus years. people are still trying to figure it out, and still trying to even just reconcile it in their head on how they'd roll it into their business. So I don't have a really good answer on that, sadly.
No, it makes sense.
Well,
no, and it's similar to what you said even earlier as well around like the trust and the buying experience. Like I bought some tickets today for a sporting event, and even in going through that process, I looked at one site where it was a trusted site, but the prices were higher. And then I found another site where the prices were lower, but I was skeptical because I'd never heard of them before.
Yeah.
Right. And it took some vetting and a little bit of research to just see, like, are they a legit company or not? Right.
Yeah.
So with all of that going into it as well, there is such a question mark and a lot of uncertainty around it. Thad, did you have a question?
No, not really a question. But you mentioned like that trust factor, right? For a site. And, I also liken this to, okay, well, I'm an HVAC contractor. I am in my truck by myself. I don't have a really big brand. I've got white truck syndrome, my lettering shit, yada, yada, yada. Does it make, and I'm going like what I've answered for Dan Antonelli is, we're a big fan of what he does in creating a brand.
Yeah.
I think that the big tech could do it if they were wanting to, because I think that they have the name recognition to be able to say, all right, we're doing it. The problem is they would essentially be a reseller of the services. Yeah. They wouldn't be able to have the team in place to be able to do it. They would just be another Angie's List or Thumbtack or Home Advisor at the end of the day, because they're not going to be able to do that. So if you buy a furnace filter or you buy something on Amazon, well, they're just going to have to spin it off to another company. Yeah. But to go back to as an individual, as a business, well, how can I create the trust like the big tech has? Well, simple, get a better brand. Right? Start there first and foremost. Your brand is more than just a vehicle, by the way. It's more than a logo. It's all encompassing to your entire business. But when you build that out and you can build that name recognition in your marketplace, and then they happen to come across your website, and then they happen to see that you have online pricing, and they happen to see that you can buy online, well, guess what? There's familiarity there, right? Like if I go to Sport Check is a Canadian company, and equivalent to, I guess, probably like a Dick's Sporting Goods down there, probably be like the equivalent that I can think of. I already know that I've got trust in there. I'll buy my products. I'll buy my shit online. Now, if something else comes across my Facebook feed and I go to, I'm like, I never heard of it. Well, chances are I'm going to go to Sport Check to find the product and see if it's the same, and then just buy it from Sport Check, right? So I think that's where, as a local business, you can establish some of that by building a bigger trust and a bigger brand within the marketplace, where big tech won't be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, that might be the next evolution of it is, we all know that the experience is what Google cares about. It's like, is it fast? Is it accessible? Is it built the right way? Is it SEO friendly? All that kind of fun stuff. And in a lot of the search results, you're seeing phone number, website, that kind of stuff. Maybe it could just be a, services available for purchase, or some gentle addition that says, this company is offering these services at large. Here's a cue that we're given to help you know that this might be a better experience than other websites that are out there. That would be a small step for them to help provide a better experience for the overall, Google audience.
Well, great idea is on the Google business profile, right? You have book appointment online. Well, why not? And then you can also have products and services in your Google business profile. Well, if you link that product with your price to the website where they can buy that price, now you've created a better experience within the Google business profile. Google could also add in as like buy online too. Now you're ported to there. And so that's could be a step for Google to help out the contractors. But going back to that those products and services is adding those onto your Google business profile, making sure that people can buy it online, mentioning it in your Google business profile, that you also sell those services online.
Yeah, I mean, everywhere. I mean, that's kind of it is, I can't tell you how many, I don't know if you guys get them up in Canada. Every week I get a envelope full of coupons in my mailbox, for all kinds of duct cleaning and things like that. And I see all these prices left and right. Okay. If it's $99, like, why can't I just go to this URL and buy right now? If you're sending out email campaigns, like, I was joking with Thaddeus before this. In Texas, we just had this giant freeze and all these trees fell apart all over Texas. And so, great companies then are aware of that and send out emails. Hey, if we can help clean up your yard, let us know. Here's the cost. Send them straight to Click to Buy. Let them just pay for it right then, and then you're done. Versus sending them to the home page or even a service page, where then they have to continue to find where to go to actually, engage. There's ways to shortcut a lot of this now. If I've got your attention, you want the service, just give me your money and let's just get this thing started.
Yep.
So
Shut up and take my money.
take my money.
Technical question: is Click to Buy on the website itself as an embed, or is it on your own domain?
Yeah, great question. So currently it's launched as a subdomain of sites.
Okay.
And you can, set up technically, like CNAMEs from a domain standpoint and make it be buynow.yourdomain.com or something like that. We went back and forth on whether to embed it or whether to have a separate site. And, based on a lot of the Google performance type stuff, the more third-party scripts and things that you're loading in the site, that's going to impact your performance scores. Mm-hmm. And we also, one of our core beliefs is we call it like BYOB, like bring your own blank. You can bring any kind of CMS, you can bring any kind of marketing team, any kind of website, and we can plug in. Right. And so, by nature of us being in digital as long as we've had, we have a ton of digital experience that's gone into this to make it as flexible as possible. You can sell one or many services, one or many service categories, you can have 1,000 locations all selling different services as well. And all of that, really is just a link from your website to get it launched when you're ready. Right. So overall setup time, we have a quick onboarding call, give you a worksheet to kind of fill out, help walk you through the onboarding process. If there is those recommendations of, okay, like some clients, they have all their pricing online already. They just don't have a way to take money for it.
Right.
And so it's very easy to translate that into the shopping cart experience. And as soon as we have that information, we can get up and running in a couple of days. So it's a pretty quick turnaround once we kind of make sure we're all on the same page in terms of, how you want to charge for it, what options you want to show, what contracts you want people to sign during their checkout process. All that's possible. And it's, that's what hasn't existed, until now. And I know there's a lot of people entering the market, which we love because we're all saying the same things. This is important. We may have, philosophically disagree on how products should work, or, whether you lead with products or services or whatever. A lot of the thinking is the same. We all agree that, homeowners need to be top of mind. How homeowners buy needs to be part of, how you're thinking about adjusting potentially the way people can acquire your services. And you've got to get off of zero to make that technical step to start to sell things, tomorrow. So it's not going away. I hate to say that because everybody has enough to worry about, but this is the next thing. And I joke because I'm still shocked this hasn't been a thing for 20 years, and to your initial question, why not? The technology has not been there until recently. And so now there's no excuse.
Well,
that's my sales pitch.
Love it. Well, and with that too, we want to make sure that people can get a hold of you if they want to inquire about services. And I feel like this is a good spot since we just did the sales pitch. Click2buyservices.com. Go check them out there on their website. Of course, you can reach out to Aaron directly at Aaron at click2buyservices.com.
Two A's in Aaron.
Double A
Ron.
A Ron.
Right. Yep. And of course, you can check out their Facebook page as well, where they've got a lot of great information. Facebook.com/click2buyservices.
Thank you, gentlemen.
No worries. We're not done yet.
Oh, great. Okay.
I got this.
I'm like, because do I need another drink?
No. So it's funny because we actually came full circle back into the beginning of the podcast, and that just happened naturally, which is good. But you asked me at the beginning I've seen you guys ask this question to people on the show, but I don't remember my answer on the forum. Can you remind me of what it is? Well, it's not on the forum, but we ask at the end of every single show. Yeah. What is one question that you wished people would ask you more?
So you pulled it out just for me.
Oh yeah, just for you.
One question people, and I'll keep it non-business related, is side hobby for me is I'm a beekeeper, and so we've got 16 beehives out here in Central Texas, and as silly as it sounds, like I nerd out about bees, like they are just so fascinating. So any question about bees, I am happy to sit there and drink all day long and just fill you until you're just, you're done and drunk.
I actually have a question about bees, and I came across this article I think like 4 weeks ago, so it's actually kind of funny. This is not scripted, by the way, anybody, not scripted. So almond milk, California produces most of the almond milk, but the flowering period for almonds is generally before bees get going, so they're releasing bees early to be able to help pollinate the almond trees and potentially hurting the bee population. Is there a truth to that? And if there is there something that somebody can do? Because if I've known anything from Jerry Seinfeld in the Bee Movie, bees are important.
Bees are important. So I know timing wise if they're released ahead of schedule or whatever, but the commercial beekeepers, which is how, they move their bees all around the nation, so different plants, specifically fruit, almonds, oranges, things like that. They grow at different times of the year. And so there's a cycle where there are just truckloads of beehives moving around the nation, and they will just drop off, literally thousands of boxes of bees to pollinate these different orchards. So where that's hurting the bee population is that, number one, if something terrible was to happen to, California, not planting any seeds in anybody's head, but when the bees are there, the vast majority of the bee population in the United States would be gone. Right. And luckily the hobby beekeepers have come in and really they recycle and build the ongoing bee population locally, where that hasn't really been there, 20, 30 years ago. But there is some risk. Yeah. Number one, that they're all in the same place at the same time. And number two, when they are all in the same place at the same time, if any of them have any kind of diseases or pests, they're all sharing those too. So a lot of the, and the third leg of that is whether we want to believe it or not, like there's plenty of pesticides that are sprayed on all these different orchards as well. And the bees are getting, weakened because of that, additionally. So it is I would say a risk. It's less of a risk because again, the hobby beekeepers really, they're taking off, and buying local honey and things like that is helping support them. But from a commercial beekeeper standpoint, it's a lot of money that's hard to turn down, that really helps them keep their businesses flourishing. So there's quite a bit of risk there for sure.
Well, there you go. I did not actually know about trucking bees all over the country for different pollination cycles. That
there was actually a story, I think it was in California a couple of years ago, where a semi full of beehives fell over, got in an accident, and the whole road was just covered in bees and beehives, and they couldn't save any of them. But imagine getting in that car accident and having to get out of your car, and it's just it's like the Tommy Boy bees, everywhere. So yeah, it's dangerous. It's kind of a necessary evil. So when you're eating almonds and oranges and all those other things that do need pollination, thank your local and commercial beekeeper.
There you go.
Right.
Well, and solution to your problem, Thad, you could drink oat milk instead of almond
yes,
milk.
We actually are making a transition to oat milk
There you
in
go.
our house. Yes.
Plus, it's really hard to squeeze the milk out of the nipple on the almond.
It's true.
Yeah. It's
hands going.
What is that one of those,
Meet the
Fockers?
Meet the Fockers.
I got nipples, Greg. Could you milk me?
Yeah.
Where did this conversation go?
Alcohol.
Well, alcohol, indeed. That'll do it. So, and tea with honey in it, actually, local honey.
Fantastic.
Fact. So, Aaron, I'll be the first to say thank you for taking some time out of your day to chat with us about the new frontier for e-commerce in terms of the service industries and really just getting the pricing online. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, and I think a lot more people need to learn or listen to this conversation to learn about some of the secrets that people are putting in place to be able to really leverage this into their business, to be able to take advantage of it and really go after the younger demographic, because we're on the rise. So
yeah, and I'll put a gentle plug out there real quick too. We are running some great specials right now. Super cheap setup and 3 months for free. So there's really zero risk to get started and get off of zero. And you'll most likely be working with me to get up and running to make sure that everything's set up the right way and you have all the information you need to kind of get rolling and do it the right way the first time.
Love it.
Awesome. Cool. Well,
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
no
Take
worries.
care.
And until next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Well, that's a wrap on another episode of HVAC Success Secrets Revealed. Before you go, two quick things. First off, join our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/HVAC Revealed. The other thing, if you took one tiny bit of information out of this show, no matter how big, no matter how small, all we ask is for you to introduce this to one person in your contacts list. That's it. That's all. One person. So they too can unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Until next time.